This is the case of Conor and Sheila Dwyer, who disappeared from their home on Chapel Hill in Fermoy, County Cork, in April 1991. While they attended a funeral at St Patrick's Church on the 30th of April and last spoken to on the 1st of May, they would not be reported missing until the 22nd of May. The following are the details known about their disappearance and what the couple were like, and how some people in Fermoy are not willing to talk about it to this day or claim they don't remember.
Programme for next Sunday with the Dwyer family about the disappearance.
No.
Oh, I wouldn't know much about that. I wouldn't believe it. No, I wouldn't believe it.
You don't remember back then?
No, not really, no.
And you never heard anything about it since?
No.
Fermoy, County Cork is a beautiful town that lies on the River Blackwater in East County Cork. It is situated in the centre of the lush Blackwater Valley. It has a population of approximately 6,700 people, and it is renowned for its inland fishing and has an international appeal for trout, salmon and coarse fishing. There is the usual pubs, restaurants and shops, sights and beautiful walkways. Conor, 61 and Sheila, 60, in 1991 had two grown-up sons, Conor Jr. and Jerry, and they both lived in the UK. So they were empty nesters and described as quiet people who kept to themselves, while others said Conor was a flamboyant character, a jokester who loved to laugh. He had worked as a plumber and hackney driver, and for several years as a chauffeur, to millionaire Fritz Wolf, a German businessman who owned Castle Lyons House nearby and who would holiday there every year. Conor would act as his chauffeur and general handyman, looking after the house and driving Fritz's vintage Rolls-Royce. Many people thought it was Conor's car, and when Sheila was in the car with him, she would wave to people like the Queen, which I think she did for a bit of fun. Sheila was a homemaker, was quiet, polite and always well dressed, and took pride in her appearance. She was originally a Sweeney before marrying Conor and from Fermoy town. She had two sisters, Maisie and Nellie, along with a brother Michael, and they were a very close family. In the few days before they disappeared, nobody noticed anything unusual about their movements. They had a set routine that they didn't stray from. They attended a funeral on the 30th of April at St Patrick's Church, which was only a stone's throw from their house. People that spoke to them said they both seemed in good form and nothing seemed off about them. The next day, on the 1st of May, both Sheila's sisters Maisie and Nellie spoke with her on the phone, and they too said everything seemed fine with Sheila. This would be the last they would ever hear from Sheila. While they were all close, they didn't tend to intrude on each other, but when they tried to ring Sheila for her birthday on the 19th of May and got no response, alarm bells began to ring. Because of this, they both went to the house on Chapel Hill. It was all locked up and there was no sign of Sheila and Conor or their car. Thinking they had gone out for a drive or away for Sheila's birthday, they returned to their own homes. On the 22nd of May, the two sisters, after trying again once more to contact Conor and Sheila with no success, they finally contacted Gardaí and reported the couple missing. When the Gardaí entered the home, they found nothing of concern. Everything was in its place. There was no sign of a struggle, a break-in or anything. Their clothes were all there, as were their suitcases. There was even a pair of reading glasses left neatly on the arm of the couch. They did find 1,000 Irish pounds in an old biscuit tin, and their passports were there also, so obviously they had no plans of a trip abroad. The Gardaí contacted both sons in the UK, and they said they were not expecting a visit from their parents. Nothing was missing from the house except Conor, Sheila and their white Toyota Cressida. The Toyota Cressida was a gem of a car and deemed a luxury car in the Toyota range, and Conor looked after it very well. It was definitely a standout car that would be easily spotted. The family and neighbours were baffled. Where could they have gone? They were a reliable couple who never got into any trouble, nor had they any nefarious friends or acquaintances. Their son, Conor Jr., would speak of his parents in the most loving way. He described how his father was full of his fun, how they had built a boxcar and how his dad tied it to the back of the car to tow him down the road, how it had flipped and Conor Jr. had busted his jaw. What were they going to tell his mother? Conor Jr. would say, "I'll tell Ma I fell down the stairs." His dad's reply, "Good man," and slapped a few more band-aids on him to stop the bleeding. How us Gen X's survived childhood, I'll never know. But his mother was equally supportive to giving him and his brother extra money on a night out or throwing him a few cigarettes. They provided for their boys and loved them wholly and were a very close couple. Conor was a gentleman and treated his wife like the lady she was, always opening the car door for her, carrying her shopping and making sure she was provided for. By now the Gardaí had a 3-week time span to fill in relation to Conor and Sheila. They questioned neighbours, friends and townspeople. Bodies of water were searched as well as ground searches, including a quarry. Interpol checked ferry and airport records, but there was no sign of the Dwyers or their car. Bank accounts were intact and would remain untouched by them over the next 34 years. Nothing showed up as to what might have happened or where they were gone. It was a complete mystery. Of course, over the first few years, people through Garda appeals came forward and gave information of sightings at Lourdes Airport, Germany and the UK, and in Fermoy itself. These leads led nowhere. While you had people who knew the Dwyers and not sure it was them when they thought they spotted them in Fermoy, you had others that didn't know the Dwyers and had never set eyes on them. They were 100% sure it was Conor and Sheila. I guess it comes down to people trying to be helpful, and the result is the opposite. The Dwyers were not the only people to disappear from Fermoy around this time. In March 1990, a man would vanish. 53-year-old William Fennessy disappeared along with his car. He had worked as an undertaker, auctioneer, pub owner, and was a councillor for the Labour Party in Cork and well known in the area. He lived around 4 miles from the Dwyers with his wife Noreen. On the night of the 31st of March, Noreen came home to an empty house. She had been at Mass and always made it home in time for Winning Streak, a TV game show back in the 90s. Each week they would pick out the winning ticket for an appearance on the show the following week to be in with a chance of winning big prizes. Noreen had entered her name along with 3 stars in the hope she would be picked, and she was. While delighted with herself, she wondered where her husband was. In 2008, Noreen gave an interview on TV recalling the night her husband never came home. All she had was questions. Where did he go? Did he go by himself or was he taken? Had he an accident and ended up in a river, or did he just leave her? William was last seen on the other side of town that evening in his Daihatsu Charade. He was never seen again, just like the Dwyers. Every day for years, Noreen went up to the Garda station in Fermoy looking for answers, and each time she was turned away. The Gardaí had no answers. Noreen declared her husband William dead in 1997 and continued to live in the house where they had reared their 6 children, in the hope he would come through the door someday.
I feel it was the last day of March 1990. Where did he go? What did he do with the car? I don't know. Did he plan it? Did he just take off? Nobody knows. I haven't answers. Where someone could go into thin air. I don't know. At this stage we don't talk about it because we have nothing to talk about. We've no answers. No nothing. Of course we'd love to know what happened. Where is he? But I feel sure at this stage we won't know. It never ends. Just always at the back of your head. Where is he? What did he do with the car? No answers.
In October 2012, though, Noreen would finally get some answers. The sub-aqua team were doing a routine training in the Blackwater River adjacent to the rowing club. Around 300 metres west of Fermoy's main bridge, they would find a car. It was a Daihatsu Charade and the number plates matched to William's car. Inside they found skeletal remains of a body, and through DNA they identified the remains as William. Noreen and William's brother James stood on the bank as divers made several attempts at recovering the car and the body inside. Finally, they were successful, and the body was brought for post-mortem. There were no signs of foul play, and it is thought that poor William must have lost control of his car through a skid on the road or a medical emergency he experienced. I guess we'll never know how exactly he ended up in the river. It had taken 22 years to find William and his car, but finally he could be laid to rest in Ballyduff, County Waterford, where he was originally from. Noreen and her family finally had their closure. Upon William being found, it stirred up mixed emotions within Fermoy, especially for the Dwyer family. How was William missed? The Blackwater River was searched when William went missing, and searched again when the Dwyers went missing over a year later. How was he not found, and is it possible the Dwyer couple had the same fate and just have not been found yet? Of course, there are plenty of speculation and rumours as to what happened to Conor and Sheila. It is said that in the 1980s, Conor had disappeared before and was gone for a length of time before showing up again, but there is nothing to support this, so it really is just a rumour. Also, his son Conor Jr. has no recollection of his father going missing for a period of time. Sheila's sisters would say the same. Others said that Fritz Wolff, the millionaire that Conor worked for, was a drug baron and his connections with him could have caused them to disappear. Again, nothing to support this information. Fritz Wolff never showed any interest in finding Conor and Sheila, and there is no mention of him funding any kind of search. But he did run into financial trouble in the mid-90s and his house in Castlelyons was repossessed. It was also suggested that Conor and Sheila had taken their own lives by driving into the river, but there is no evidence to support this. They had no financial difficulties, they owned their own house and a parcel of land nearby, which both would be auctioned off eventually. They got on great and were heading towards retirement. It would give them the freedom of not having to work and do their own thing, having raised their family. It should also be noted that there were not many barriers around the river back in the 90s. There was nothing to hit and leave a trace of an accident if a car went into the river. The River Blackwater is 169 kilometres long and has an average depth of 2.5 feet, but it was prone to flooding in the Fermoy area among other places. It is also not a river to be reckoned with and very strong undercurrents in parts. It is possible the car is at the bottom of the river due to an accident. There is nothing in this case to suggest otherwise, and hopefully someday soon, for the sake of their sons, that answers will come. Sheila's sisters, Maisie and Nellie, have since passed, and her brother Michael. Conor and Sheila would be turning 96 and 95 years of age, respectively, this year if they were alive today. I think we must accept that they are no longer alive, and now I think it's time they are brought home. What do you all think happened? Rest in peace, Conor and Sheila.